Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on regional economic development. If you've ever wondered exactly how a massive, multi-county legislative agenda is built long before a single bill is even introduced at the state capitol, well, you're in the right place. We're going to deconstruct a really fascinating internal memo from the CEO of the Regional Chamber of Northeast Indiana, dated late August 2026. Now, on the surface, this document reads like your standard run-of-the-mill status update, but when we actually look closer, it's a total masterclass in leadership perspective, corporate advocacy, and some incredibly high-stakes budget strategy. Okay, let's dive right into this. The driving motto for Northeast Indiana is 11 counties, one voice. It's a great catchphrase, right? But practically speaking, coordinating that single voice requires a massive amount of strategic, behind-the-scenes heavy lifting. It definitely doesn't happen by accident. Getting 11 counties on the same page means aligning competing interests, organizing corporate advocacy, and ensuring that when the region speaks to the state legislature, it speaks with absolute unwavering unity. So, here is our roadmap for the Explainer to see how they pull this off. First, we'll go inside the CEO's week. Second, we'll look at how they unify corporate advocacy. Third, we'll break down a $30 million budget strategy. And finally, building the 2027 agenda. Let's get into it.
Starting with Section 1, Inside the CEO's Week, and what I like to call the business-as-usual illusion. You know how leadership memos can be, right? They often downplay the sheer chaos of the job. In fact, the CEO literally kicks off this memo by saying, "So, for us, it was business as usual." I mean, you got to appreciate the understatement there, because, as we're about to see, this week is anything but ordinary. Calling this business as usual really masks the incredible scale of the chess pieces being moved around the board here.
Because when you break down what this routine actually entails, the CEO is juggling some serious priorities. We're talking about managing core operational issues, maintaining this constant flowing communication with members and state legislators, driving regional marketing, and shaping high-level corporate advocacy. It's that daily, persistent grind of relationship management that actually makes the huge legislative wins possible down the road. Moving to Section 2, Unifying Corporate Advocacy Voices Through Structural Changes for a Bigger Impact.
If you really want to advocate effectively at the state level, you absolutely need the right people in the room and a rock-solid structure behind them. A perfect example of this is the CEO's sit-down with Tanisha Weigold. She represents Butler, Fairman, and Suffert, Inc., and she sits on the World-Class Infrastructure Policy Priority Committee. The CEO specifically highlights her because she perfectly anchors the kind of individual advocacy they rely on. She's got this rare mix, right? She represents private sector business, but she intimately understands public infrastructure. Having been a district director for Congressman Jim Banks and a Roanoke Town Board member, she knows exactly what it costs to build and maintain community infrastructure. Bringing that kind of dual expertise into the strategy is just invaluable.
But here's the really brilliant part. The Chamber isn't just asking smart people for advice, they're actually changing the structure of the organization to permanently unify those voices. The CEO's notes reveal a major proposed bylaw amendment. They're planning to bring both the 11-member Lido Council, that's the local economic development organization, and the Northeast Indiana Chamber Coalition directly into the corporation as Class B members. If the board adopts this, each organization gets to nominate a rep for a 3-year term on the board of directors. It's a structural domino effect that literally institutionalizes that one-voice motto.
Which brings us to Section 3, a $30 million budget strategy, and the incredibly high stakes of these routine meetings.
So, what exactly is this newly unified machine gearing up to ask for? $30 million. Let that number sink in for a second. That is the sheer scale of the grant request they are quietly preparing for the 2027 budget session of the Indiana General Assembly. When the CEO said business as usual, this massive financial play is what was happening right there in the background.
Now you might be wondering, how do you justify walking into the state capitol and asking for an extra $30 million? Well, the CEO attended the August meeting of the Strategic Development Commission to talk about the annual report going to the State Budget Committee. To get that kind of money, you have to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the work you did over the previous grant periods was incredibly meaningful. It takes meticulous reporting and unquestionable results to warrant that kind of continued investment.
But having the data is really only half the battle. The other half? Pure access and networking. The CEO details some very calculated steps here. For instance, the Regional Chamber strategically sponsored a House Republican campaign committee event in Fort Wayne. This wasn't just a casual night out. It was a highly deliberate opportunity to get direct face time with members of the legislative delegation and the Speaker. The goal is simple. When the 2027 session starts, you want the decision makers to already know who you are, what you've achieved, and exactly why you need that $30 million.
Okay, let's wrap this up with Section 4, Building the 2027 Agenda, from the committees to the Capitol. So, how does all this groundwork actually solidify into an actionable legislative agenda? It's basically a masterclass in building momentum. First, you have the 21st Century Talent and World-Class Infrastructure Committees meeting to hash out initial ideas. Then, those items are immediately bumped up to the Chamber Board of Directors, who met on Monday, August 24th. Literally 2 days later, on Wednesday the 6th, the Regional Chamber and Greater Fort Wayne host a breakfast with their legislative delegation. And they bring backup. They invite members of the LEDO Council and the Capital Improvements Board to present their specific issues, too. It is a highly orchestrated, rapid-fire pipeline taking ideas straight from committee brainstorming right to the lawmakers' ears.
And of course, the hustle doesn't stop just because the breakfast plates are cleared. The memo shows immediate, hyper-targeted follow-up. Right after that breakfast, the CEO heads into a direct meeting with Senator Tyler Johnson and then goes straight to the Board of Directors meeting for NEI. It's a continuous, closed-loop system. You align, you present, and then you instantly follow up to lock in that support.
So, let's take a step back. What is this incredibly unified, meticulously organized regional machine actually going to achieve in the 2027 session? We've just seen how a single week of so-called business as usual involves completely rewiring corporate advocacy, getting 11 counties on the exact same page, and setting the stage for a massive $30 million ask. The preparation is relentless. The only question left is how the Indiana General Assembly will respond to this powerhouse when the gavel finally falls in 2027. Keep all of this in mind the next time you see a major regional development project get the green light, because it all starts with the unseen, behind-the-scenes strategy we just explored.